All right, well, thank you so much, Bruce, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, good morning, everybody. As Bruce mentioned, my name is Henrik Holland. I am the global head of Prologis Mobility. I'm based in Los Angeles and have been with Prologis for a little over a year. I spent about 2 decades in energy, developing and building all kinds of energy projects. Over the last decade or so, I've been in technology investing and renewables technology investing and distributed energy and EV project development and operations. So it's a real pleasure to be here today. What we really wanted to try and do today is give you a sense of, how JT, myself, at Prologis, how we've been looking at the challenges of logistics, EV fleet electrification. There's a lot happening in the industry. We're really in kind of an unprecedented time as it comes to technology transformation, regulatory pressures, but at the same time, seeing a lot of really great opportunity to harness new technology on the cost side and the operation side as it comes to EV. So there's these 2 things. There's the regulatory kind of aspects and some of the sticks, as well as the carrots and the benefits of EV, on the economics as well as sustainability side. And we wanted to give you a sense of, okay, how are we thinking about bringing those 2 together? There's a little noise on the line, so if those not speaking wouldn't mind muting, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And we wanted to give you a sense of what it really takes to bring in a project to life. And, this new world can kind of look kind of scary, and we want to take some of that out of it, because these projects, there's ways to do them effectively in a way that is not super scary. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. So before I go into that, maybe the next slide, please. Just a brief overview of Prologis, what really we do. I hope you will have heard of us. Prologis is the largest logistics real estate company in the world. Logistics real estate is a fancy way of saying warehouses and truck drop lots, trailer drop lots. That's all we do. We have about 1 billion square foot of assets under management. That translates to, think about, 3,500 or so, 4,000 buildings in the US. Think about 900 facilities in California. So in Southern California, Edison's territory alone, we have about 550 warehouses, excluding the truck drop lot. So a huge amount of logistics real estate. And really the reason for us to focus on mobility as Prologis is because of the challenges that we see, challenges and opportunities that we see in this transition. So our mission really is to help our customers with that transition to zero emissions vehicles. We are already, that's an interesting fact perhaps, the 3rd largest operator of rooftop solar. Warehouses have a lot of roof space, so we're very heavily investing in that as well. Sustainability is really a passion, not just of JT and myself, but at the team here at Prologis. We just announced a net zero ambition by 2040 as well. So over the next few years, you'll see us heavily invest in a sustainability drive across the portfolio. All right, if I can go to the next slide. Where we are in our mobility journey with our customers is that, we started this effort about 1.5 years ago. So we've been developing projects for a little over a year and are seeing a number of first projects come to life. So this is a picture of a project deployment in Santa Fe Springs. You kind of have to look at the detail a little bit, but what you see there on the ground are about, I think it's about 14 or 15 trucks that are there. Those are Volvo VNR electric trucks at a project where we installed, it's about 1.5 megawatts of charging capacity. So this is one of our first projects where we're helping a customer with this transition and made it really easy for them, right? So this customer is enjoying the benefits of charging operations, they don't have to worry about that, and they are paying us a fee per kilowatt hour to be able to use those chargers. So that's really what, for us, kind of the future looks like, a very simple solution for our customers, so that you don't have to worry about the complexities of EV charging. All right, so I'm going to hand over to JT, who's going to talk a little bit about the regulatory drivers. As I mentioned, there's the two balancing things here in this EV transition. It's the regulatory side, the challenges that come with transition, but then there's also really the opportunity side on total cost of ownership and just the operational benefits of EVs. So JT is going to touch on how we look at some of the regulatory aspects of this in a little bit more detail. JT?
Yes, let's go to the next slide, please. So this is a slide just quickly spotlighting, it's like a 100,000-foot view, some of the regulatory and incentive trends in the US. California is a big center of gravity for these, predominantly the story of LCFS credits and ZEV mandates, but there are other emerging markets as well, similarly on the East Coast, ZEV mandates coming about, and then a couple of federal level affairs, such as on the bottom right, an MOU for truck and bus transportation in that 30% mark. So this is really interesting and positive news for commercial fleets and heavier duty. Historically, incentives were geared more towards the light duty consumer level domain. Let's go to the next slide, please, which zooms in a little bit more in California. So specifically in California, if you start on the left in this time scale, today active in the warehouse domain is this indirect source rule that you may have heard about. If you are a warehouse greater than 250,000 square feet today, you are expected to take certain actions to offset emissions related to you, but not directly emitted by you, such as the trucks that visit your premises. So there's a menu option. You can make some investments in. EV charging is a good example of that, and we'll show the value of that in the latter slide. Apologies for the background noise. There's some alarm going off here at the airport lounge. There's then further across the time scale, you'll find various ZEV mandate flavored things. There's a production, OEM production ZEV mandate. So you can see there at 2025, vehicle manufacturers expected to have a certain percentage of the production geared towards zero emissions vehicles. Then in 2035, that's an example of a ZEV emission on the adoption of trucks. So especially in the drayage segment, for which we have a case study a little bit later. And then finally in 2045, another broad sales mandate following in the footsteps of the light duty vehicle mandates. As you can see, trucks, last mile delivery, straight trucks and buses, and Class 8 tractors all are building towards strong penetration in that 2035 timescale. Let's go to the next slide. All right, Henrik, this one is back to you.
Yeah, thank you, JT. So JT talked a little bit about the regulatory side. What some of the I hope you don't mind, Bruce, that I call them the sticks, right? So there are compliance obligations that are kind of pushing the market towards zero emissions vehicles. But what we're very excited about is that not only does the transition to zero emissions vehicles address sustainability objectives, but there's also a real opportunity as it comes to savings, just cost benefits from a total cost of ownership perspective, as well as operational benefits that we are starting to see many of the customers that we work with realize in how they plan routes and how they think about operating their logistics services. So on the longer scale, what we see emerge is attractive use cases all the way from light duty to heavier duty. The formula here really is, one-off vehicle cost that tends to be higher, especially in the heavier duty segment, where over time the economic case becomes positive because of lower maintenance cost and lower fuel cost, predominantly associated with zero emission vehicles. So the numbers that you see here on the slide, they are a little dated. They come from some work that CARB did back in 2019. The key thing to take away here is that the opportunity, don't think about this just as something that we have to do from a regulatory perspective, but there's a real opportunity here to drive bottom line savings to the business side of things as well. And I've been really positively surprised to see that, especially or even on the heavier duty side as it comes to drayage applications. Of course, the incentive programs, the HVIP program helps a lot as it comes to first vehicle cost. But those are starting to emerge as very positive economic use cases as well. So overall, I think we're at a really interesting moment in the adoption of electric vehicles where we're starting to get onto that pathway of positive commercial returns as you look at the full end-to-end life cycle cost of these vehicles. All right, if we can go to the next slide. So we've had the discussion about kind of carrots and sticks. So let's say that you now want to move forward with EV charging, fleet electrification. What kind of challenges do we see customers face in moving in this direction? And this comes really from years of building and developing projects. JT and I both worked at Shell before being at Prologis, so we've developed projects out of green launch, different types of customers, different environments, and there's a few things that just kind of tend to come back on almost every fleet electrification project. So on the left hand of this picture, the vehicles, we talked about that a little bit already. In California, fortunately, we see a lot of really good programs like HVIP to support that one-off cost. But the key thing there as it comes to vehicle cost is to look at things from a total cost of ownership perspective. So really ensuring that you take full life cycle cost into account. The other challenges there that are the industry is facing now are supply chain issues, as I'm sure all of you will have some exposure to, and availability of vehicles. We have heard some challenges around the weight of battery electric, especially in the heavier duty side, which in some application cases could be a bit of an issue. And we're kind of interested to see how hydrogen might be able to solve some of those things more on the longer haul, heavier duty side of the spectrum. So that's the vehicle side of things. So what are the other kind of key things that you run into? And there's really kind of three things that I want to touch on. Charging infrastructure, siting and real estate, as well as then operating. So first of all, on charging infrastructure, it's really important to think about what kind of chargers and energy you need to fuel your vehicles. There is a bit of a tendency to think that higher power, more energy is always better, but it doesn't have to be, right? So for last mile applications, vehicles that can charge overnight, oftentimes an AC charger or low power DC charging solution can fit the bill when you have 8 to 10 hours to charge a vehicle overnight, and that then really helps on the energy balance side of things. For heavier duty drayage applications, we're looking at a lot more high power charging so that you can charge a vehicle within 30, 45, 50 minutes or so to a reasonable state of charge to fit the operational duty cycle of the vehicle. So it really depends on what it is that you need. And that's something to really work through with your solutions provider. Then the siting, one of the key reasons I think that I and JT joined Prologis is because we ran into a lot of site access and negotiations with landlords on the install of charging equipment. So that is something to take into account early in the process, that if you are in a leased property, or if you want to acquire a site to install infrastructure to have your vehicles there, think about that early on. That is, of course, something that we work with our customers. That's kind of easy because we are the landlord. We also do projects with other landlords, with customers out of the Prologis platform, where our kind of sense of how real estate companies look at these things kind of helps smooth things along. But that's really something to think about early on in the process. On the operations side, value only gets delivered once these trucks actually charge. So this is not a set it and forget it type situation where, you know, you install the chargers and you can kind of walk away. It is important to think about ongoing monitoring, preventative maintenance of these systems to ensure that your operations don't get interrupted by outages. So that's something that we are super focused on, that I've been super focused on the last few years, because in order for us to really move forward with electrification, we need to make sure that this is reliable, right? That you don't have trucks standing still, that you can't fulfill your fleet obligations because of a charger that's down. So that's really important. So those are kind of the three key operational items that are very top of mind for us as we help customers with this transition. Of course, on the regulatory and reporting side, there is a complex regulatory and reporting environment, reporting requirements for, in Southern California, for example, the independent source rule, the WARE obligations that JT mentioned. So they could be county, city, county, and state level regulatory and reporting. So it's important to just list out, what do I need to do? Do the incentives I apply for require any specific reporting? Then how can I set myself, or work with a solutions provider to set myself up to do that in a way that doesn't cause me a headache as I progress with my project and operate my project. So these are some of the key challenges that we see on almost every project. And if we go to the next slide, there are solutions. The good news is that there is a way through this. There is a growing industry of solutions providers and professionals that have done these projects. So you're not alone as you think about making these things happen. What I'd really love you to take away from this chat is that it's important to think about these things early on in your electrification transition. So don't wait about thinking about infrastructure and operations until you've ordered the vehicles. It's good to kind of think about that. When you're thinking about vehicles, start thinking about your infrastructure. And then secondly, what can be really helpful, what I think is actually very critical and crucial, is to take an end-to-end approach to developing your project. So what I mean with that is, think about everything from the infrastructure side to the operations and the energy. And that is the approach that we are taking with our customers, is to make things very simple, as fast as possible, and everywhere. That's kind of our slogan. It's simple, fast, and everywhere. And what I mean with everywhere is that you need to be able to charge where you want to, which could be at one of our sites, but also at a partner location. The simple side is what I mean with simple is that we provide that end-to-end approach to the project. And we bundle that all up in a single contract. That's the way that we do it commercially. But my key point is to just, however you think about doing this or who you're working with, is kind of think about these three key buckets: infrastructure, operations, and energy. On the simplicity side, a way to make it simple for yourself is to think about it as a service model. So you see that on the slide. They reduce complexity and eliminate upfront capital need. So that's contracting. Think about contracting not just for the install of the project, the purchasing of the chargers, but also about the operations and the energy side as a bundle. That doesn't work for everybody. For a lot of customers, it does. that alleviates you of the need to think about all of those components and program and project manage them all individually. What's important in terms of a solution is alignment with the facility. We talked about the landlord negotiations that can be somewhat challenging. If you're installing infrastructure, think about the considerations of having to remove it. That's something that we do with our customers as well. We align the lease terms. Let's say you're in a building for 5 to 7 years. We align our contracts on the infrastructure side with that lease term to create that flexibility. Resourcing is important as well. You're not alone. As I mentioned, there are an increasing amount of solutions providers that can help you with this end-to-end approach. Speed is important. So oftentimes the infrastructure gets forgotten until the vehicles are ordered. And we have a customer that says, hey, I have vehicles coming in June. Can you help us with power? We have a really good temporary power solution that we can bring to the table to get sites energized within weeks or months, even if it's only a partial energization of the site. So think about that as you're looking at your electrification project. And then scalability is important as well, right? When you're thinking about projects, oftentimes you see a pilot project to start with. It's important to start thinking through early on, okay, how am I now going to take this to the next level? If I have 300 vehicles overall, I'm going to start with 20. Plan ahead in terms of how you're going to think about electrifying the full fleet that you have. So these are some of the solutions that we think about. So we really think about this end-to-end approach, simple, fast, and really taking the complexity out of things for our customers. And we found that generally this resonates really well and sets our customers up to be able to scale their deployment when they're ready to do so. All right, so that's a little bit about how we think about solutions and how we work with our customers in our Prologis portfolio and outside of our portfolio. To make this a little bit more tangible, I'm going to hand it back over to JT, who's going to talk about what a typical process looks like on a project. And then we have two use cases that we'll talk through to make it even more concrete. JT?
So to realize these solutions that Henrik just spoke about, we use a fairly standard project delivery model, which hasn't advanced yet on my slide here. There we go. So this should be fairly familiar to organizations that deal in capital project development. In this case, of course, it's used to deliver a design, build, own, and operate model for us that we then present as a service to our customers. And it starts with discovery, where we really dive deep into understanding the fleet operations. What flexibilities do the fleet have? Those can be quite consequential to avoid overinvestment in capacity, but also ensuring that there's enough there for the task at hand. The conceptual design follows. So that's where it's really the birthing place of engineering, and where utilities begin the engagement with us. Pricing gets formed upon that kind of basis of design, which then leads to an agreement with our customer. And after that, the real detailed work begins in detailed design, permitting, construction, and then commissioning. In that phase, we also start up our kind of operations readiness processes, where we bring in parallel our operations folks to ensure a smooth turnover on the target date. Now let's have a look at where we've used this process in some case studies. So if we move to the next slide, please. This is a drayage case study in Southern California, where 22 Class A tractors are involved. It's commissioning in about 15 days from now, and it's about 2.5 megawatts worth of power. So that serves the 22 trucks with the drayage duty, as I mentioned, a mix of 350 kilowatt high power and then 180 kilowatt high power chargers for almost 4 million kilowatt hours a year delivered. So it's a 24-hour operation. Key features being, again, like Henrik mentioned, co-terminus with a lease, a very simple service fee on $1 per kilowatt hour basis, a high uptime guarantee, comes with fleet management software, so you can track your trucks and see their states of charge and plan their charging schedules, for example. And then, of course, the 24/7 critical O&M support with a call center. Relating to that indirect source rule, you can see the value that this generates from that kind of compliance perspective. The greener columns there is the wear potential, so the wear points potential in that ISR rule, and the lighter blue is what it actually covers. So you can see that this investment gives you pretty good future proofing for wear compliance over for that particular warehouse at that scale. Let's look at another case study on the next page. This one is a last mile delivery. Now, the DNA of last mile delivery operations, as you may know, is more the story of daylight deliveries and nighttime rest for vehicles. So that gives really an opportunity to provide lower cost of power during non-peak periods of a day, and therefore also use lower power capacities to provide that solution. So in this case, overall, the amount of capacity is still commensurate with the previous case study at 2.2, but there's far more lower power chargers because of that exploitation of time. So we're really maximizing the night to deliver that power, that energy over that period of time. Similarly, the key features, again, are consistent with before, and also the value from a compliance perspective are similar. All right, the next slide would wrap it up for us. I think that gets into question time, or Mrs. Moderator, you tell us what's next.